Let us look at the significance of a planet at the beginning of a new cusp in Krishnamurti Paddhati. Welcome to this presentation where we are going to look at a very important KP astrology rule that we tend to ignore or overlook. Now there are several ways of expressing this particular rule. One can say that the planet on a house cusp or a planet position near a cusp or a planet just a few degrees away from a new house cusp. Now when we say a planet just a few degrees away from a new house cusp, then we should not get confused with the strength of a planet based on its degree in the Parashari astrology. There are several concepts in the Parashari astrology where the strength of a planet depends on its degree. For example, the terms like Atmakarak and the Yuva or the Vriddha planet or the Arohi planet, they are all dependent on the on what kind of a degree they have in a horoscope. But we are not talking about this rule at all. The Krishnamurti's rule is very different. In Krishnamurti Paddhati, the strength of a planet by virtue of its degree has no value. So this is something that you should always remember and not get confused. That the strength of a planet by virtue of its degree has no value in KP. So when we are talking about a planet on a house cusp, of course it depends on the degree of the planet, but the interpretation and the concept is different. That is what I am going to explain in a more easier way. In the traditional house divisions, the divisions tend to create a watertight kind of a container. So these are like very sharp dividing lines, and if let's say a planet is right here right here at the very beginning of the 10th house, but it has no value in the traditional house division. But in the Krishnamurti Paddhati, since it is derived from the house division in Krishnamurti Paddhati, are derived from the Placidus system in the Western astrology. So when the planet is near the beginning of a cusp, then it starts affecting or the result of that cusp also. So let's understand this with an example. Let's assume that the seventh cusp. So let's assume that the seventh cusp is let's say it starts at Gemini 3 degree, and the eighth cusp, let's assume the eighth cusp starts at, let's say, Cancer 5 degree. Now in the Placidus system and in the Krishnamurti Paddhati also, if a planet is, let's say Jupiter is somewhere here, and let's say it's almost on the cusp of the Cancer. Let's say it is in Gemini, is in Cancer, let's say 1 degree, or let's say is in Cancer 2 degree, though it is still in the seventh cusp. Let's say Jupiter is in 2 degree Cancer. So Jupiter is still in the 7th house or the 7th cusp. Okay. But since it is very near to the beginning of the 8th cusp, so in the Krishnamurti Paddhati, it will start giving the result of the 8th house also. It will give the result of the 7th house, and then it will also start giving the result of the 8th house. So that is what is meant by planet on a house cusp or a planet position near a cusp. Now, when we say a planet position near a cusp, then what kind of a range or a scope, how far it should be? So, in Krishnamurti Paddhati, the usual uh, agreement is that it should be 3 degree, about 3 degrees. The range should be 3 degree. But sometimes I have seen people taking 4 degrees, 5 degrees, even up to 10 degrees. But usually 3 degree 20 minutes is the usual standard. And I usually prefer to take 4 degrees. So if a planet is on the cusp of the subsequent planet and almost on the 4 degree range, then it starts giving the result of the next cusp as well. So Jupiter in our example is in 2 degree, and then if we add another 3 degree or 4 degree to it, then it is virtually almost on the beginning of the next cusp, the eighth house or the 8th cusp. So Jupiter will give the result of the 7th cusp or the house, and then it will also give the result of the 8th house. Now some of the other I would say smaller questions around this is that what happens if Jupiter is retrograde, or what happens if Rahu and Ketu, rather than Jupiter and Jupiter, suppose Rahu and Ketu and they always have a retrograde motion, then what happens? It doesn't matter. Planet is direct or planet is retrograde, it doesn't matter. If it is right at the threshold, right at the juncture, right at the border of a cusp, then it will start giving the result of the subsequent or the next cusp. Now we will understand this with a practical example, because the signification of a planet starts changing when a planet is near the cusp. So we will see this, we will apply this in a horoscope and see how the planet signification changes. We have navigated to the jyotishportal.com, where we are going to generate an example chart. So I'm going to make use of this particular birth data. I'm going to populate the form. Jamaica, New York. This is the city. So this is the chart for this birth particulars. Now let's I will just identify one single planet, one planet only, which is very near the ascendant. And in this chart, if you look at, then you find that the Mars in the Lagna chart is in the ascendant, but in the cusp chart it has gone in the 12th house. So let's look at the degree of Mars and also the first cusp. The first cusp is Leo 7 degrees, and if you look at the degree of the Mars, then it is Leo 3 degrees. So it's very near. Another way of looking at this degree and finding out quickly, especially if you are weak at mathematics like me, then you can click on this detail button. So when you go to the detail button, then you get this the degree in the longitude, these decimal places. So you find that Mars is 123.77 and the ascendant Leo is 127.35. So almost within our range of 4 degrees. So we can say that Mars is right on the cusp of the ascendant. And Mars has started giving the result of the ascendant also. Usually when we draw the signification table without taking into consideration the planet signification by virtue of being on the cusp, then we find that Mars is not indicating the first house result. Whereas when you apply this rule, and we are going to integrate this rule in the planet signification table at some point, but here you can see that Mars is not indicating the first house. So what we will do is that we will update this table by adding the Mars signification for the first house as well. So when we say that Mars has started giving the result of the ascendant, then all we have to do is just add the house number 1. See, this is the positional strength. Okay, as if Mars is in the ascendant. So this is a very strong signification of Mars. Will give the result of 12th, but at the same time it has started giving the result of the first house as well. And then you have to identify all places where you find Mars, and you just have to add the first house. So now we have updated the signification of Mars by adding the first house to its signification list. Now if you look at the result, some quick result I will tell you in this horoscope. See, this is the horoscope of President Trump. He has a Leo ascendant and he's a very, I would say, a very stereotype kind of a Leo ascendant. Means like he doesn't tolerate any subordination. He's a bossy. He's very assertive. We all know about Donald Trump's personality. But the moment now you see that Mars has also started influencing the first house, okay, as if Mars is in the first house, then it adds a lot of energy to an already existing Leo's stubbornness. See, Mars is called as the commander-in-chief. So now you can see that what kind of additional boldness and courage and confidence it's going to add to the Leo ascendant. Now, apart from that, the Mars usual signification of 12-4, which is quite prominent in this horoscope, that indicates Donald Trump's interest in the real estate. You know, he has a series of these upscale residential Trump Towers, business plus residential almost in all major cities across US and even in Europe. So he is heavily interested and he has heavily invested in the real estate. But when Mars also starts signifying the result of the first house, then look at what happened to the Rahu signification. When Mars was not signifying the first house, then it did indicate a good, I would say, a good business result for the real estate kind of a business. But the moment you add the first house over here, then the 10th and the first house and 11th and the first house, this combination starts making public or starts pushing the person to go into a public domain, which is politics. And Rahu's Dasha, the Dasha of Rahu, has been instrumental in Donald Trump's life for pushing him in the public limelight. And same with Jupiter also. Now, by adding this, the house 1 signification by virtue of Mars, and then again the Rahu signification, 10 and 11, it indicates his rise in the political career and the kind of battle that he is fighting in the politics. So you see, without the Mars signifying the first house, we could only say that this person will make a lot of money, will be wealthy, and will have interest in the real estate. So that was obvious. But the moment we added the Mars significance of the first house by virtue of Mars being on the cusp of the first house, then it expanded his career. Apart from the real estate, it also added and explained why he became so active in the public life. And apart from that, it also explained his assertiveness and the bold behavior and very stubborn behavior. So this all can now be explained easily when you add the Mars signification for the first house. Now, many of these software, they will, I'm sure many of the software, they will let you know that if a planet is on the cusp of a certain house or not. The only thing is that you have to configure your preferences. I don't know, by default they might be accommodating just 3 degree, but many of them will have this setting where you can go and from 3, if you are not happy with 3 degree, you can make it 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever. The idea is that if you have your chart where this the signification of a planet by virtue of being on a cusp is not reflected, then you can start adding that signification in your chart, in your family member's friend chart, and this will give you some new insight in expanding your reading of a birth chart. So that is all in this video, and I hope you enjoyed watching it. Thanks for watching.